Hi, and welcome back to Animals 2 by 2 Eggs and Chicks. Today is day 4 in our lesson for grades K through 5. Okay, so our lesson objectives and standards are still going to be remaining the same throughout our 5-day lesson on the science of chickens. So at the end of this lesson and this week, I'd like you to be able to recognize eggs and chicks require certain environmental conditions to survive. Chicks that have these identifiable structures and behaviors, young chicks resemble their parents, and that all animals deserve respect and gentle care. Make sure that you're looking through, thinking about those questions that you have arise, and seeing if we can answer some of those, and making observations about what really goes on in our natural world. Okay, so what you'll need just a pencil, some paper to take notes, or you can draw pictures of the different cycles of a chicken's life, and of course the book 2 by 2 we looked at on Monday. Now, our vocabulary, most of these we have already hit on this week, and I just want to review those with you. Some words that you'll be learning or have learned so far are incubator, which is a machine that creates the perfect conditions to incubate and hatch successfully. Temperature, how much heat is in something. Thermometer, an instrument used for measuring or showing temperature, how hot or cold something is. A yolk, that's the yellow internal part of a bird's egg, which is surrounded by the white. It's rich in protein and in fat, and it nourishes developing embryos. An ovum, or an egg cell, it's where the female's genetic material is found. An egg tooth, it's a hard white piece on the beak or the jaw of an embryo bird or even reptiles that they use for breaking out of that hard shell, and then later it's lost, so you won't see that anymore. Wood shavings, those are thin curly pieces of wood that can be used as filler, like in the bottom of an incubator or a chicken pen, or a brooder. A brooder is kind of like a chicken pen where you keep those young chicks and pullets. So then we have our hatchling, which we just learned about, and that's a young animal that's recently emerged from its egg. That's going to be a really short stage in its life. So just a review over the last 3 days we've had. We've investigated the creation of an egg, the parts that it's made up of, how a chicken, a hen, creates the egg, what happens inside the egg while it's being incubated, and what happens when the chick is ready to hatch and finally come out of its shell. Investigation, eggs and chicks. Today we'll be looking into what happens when the chick is hatched and begins to grow. Question of the day. What happens when a chick is hatched? How does the chick grow and change? What does a fully grown chicken look like? I want you to be thinking about that as much as possible, and have that in your brain as we go through. So it begins. Chickens begin as a fertile egg and with special care and development through the incubation and hatching stage to produce a chick. Chicks go through lots of stages in a very short amount of time when you compare it to a human growth cycle, and they develop into full-grown chickens, which we can call hens or roosters. If you look at this page, in this picture particularly, that looks like we're growing, it looks like a rooster, but it's supposed to be a hen if you look at the difference between the body. Let's take a look into the progression from a chick. Notice we have the egg, we have a hatchling, then a chick, into a full-grown adult chicken. So we started off with the egg, we've looked at that all week, and now it's hatched, and that's called a hatchling. A hatchling is a young animal that's recently emerged from its egg. A hatchling will quickly become a chick. Because of a hatchling meaning that it just came out of its egg, it's not a stage that's going to last very long, because obviously once it comes out of the egg, it's got just a little bit of time, and then it's not newly emerged yet. my personal chicks. These came from my backyard. Chicks need water and food constantly available to them. Chicks are very messy and require absorbent bedding like wood chips on the floor of their brooder. This bedding and their food and water need to be changed regularly due to the amount of fecal matter and overall unsanitary conditions that they create. Guys, chicks are nasty. They don't have any awareness of what they're doing, so they'll kick their bedding up into their food and water bowls. They're jumping around and playing around, making messes. So you really need to be changing that out a minimum of 1 time a day to keep it clean and sanitary. It's beneficial to keep chicks in a brooder or a separate pen to keep them safe from predators and other chickens. We live in a rural community, so we have foxes and snakes and hawks and all kinds of predators that could come up and get your chicks. You need to make sure that you're keeping those safe. And other chickens, grown hens and pullets and roosters will sometimes try to establish dominance by pecking them and hurting them pretty badly. So you want to keep them separate while they're growing. So basically, occasionally the other roosters and hens will attack them. So you want to really keep them separated, keep them safe. This stage, the chick stage, is normally about 4 to 5 weeks before they mature to get to the next stage in their life cycle. Always cold older chicks. At about 5 weeks, the chicks will develop or grow large enough to be considered a pullet. That's what we call these. A pullet is just the human equivalent of an adolescent. So it's kind of like your teen stage for us. This stage in their life typically lasts between 5 to 20 weeks, give or take a little bit. While they're no longer as fragile as those little chickens, they haven't developed the hardiness of an adult hen or rooster, so they still need some protection. Um, During the pullet stage, you can start to integrate them into the bigger pen. You can see in my picture here, I have another section or another brooder for the pullets because they're just not ready yet to be put in the big pen with my adult hens and roosters. Matter of fact, that white one in the back, I tried to integrate and she got hurt, so I had to bring her back in to that little brooder till she gets a little bigger. Um, so just be mindful of that because there can be a lot of bullying when they're trying to get that dominance established when you're moving them in with other chickens. It can cause a little bit of harm, and unfortunately, sometimes it can cause a lot of harm to the younger chickens, the pullets and the chicks. At about 18 to 20 weeks, these pullets will become adult hens. Roosters will begin a little earlier, and they're typically between 16 to 18 weeks. You'll start to hear them, I hate to say cock-a-doodle-doo, but that's what a lot of us call it. But they'll start to make those sounds, and you'll be able to tell that they're definitely roosters. They resemble them more, a little quicker than the hens will show and start looking just like. So adult chickens, after about the 20-week mark, you should have yourself an adult chicken, or in this case, hen. And it's the hen stage. It's the adult stage. At this point, you'll have laying hens, hopefully, and they should start to produce those wonderful eggs. There's less care needed at this stage of life, but there are a few things to look out for. While these hens are being integrated into the bigger pen, if you have your chickens in a chicken pen, um, be aware of what's going to go on. Life with your older chickens that you're going to move them in with, or with that same hatching group, they'll be working for that dominance or a pecking order, if you will. They will peck at each other and pull feathers out. And just fight between themselves, trying to establish dominance. So you really need to be looking out for that. The egg production of the hens will usually be steady for the first year, but then they will start to drop after about 75 weeks. They'll still lay, but then the egg production will not be daily. It's kind of sporadic. And as that hen gets older, they become arthritic and less energetic with very poor egg production. So some hens could continue to lay intermittently for up to 7 years. Um, I haven't had that experience with mine, but I have heard it from other friends. All right, so conclusion and prelude. So once the hatch chicken, quickly go through those multiple stages of a hatchling to a chick to a pullet and finally a hen or a rooster. They typically reach maturity or adulthood around 18 to 20 weeks. I want you guys to please tune in tomorrow for lesson 5 where we recap and really close up these lessons that we've had this week. It was so good to talk to you. Hope you're doing great. Thanks for tuning in.